Well, it is a very big deal. Goes well beyond the Bush tax cuts alone. There's some other measures in here that in some respects makes this look a lot like another stimulus package. It's winning praise from some Republicans and criticism from some Democrats who now must decide if they can back it on the floor or whether they should bolt their own president. Here are the key provisions of what President Obama is calling a framework for a deal. Let's start first with the Bush tax cuts, a temporary extension of Bush tax cuts for everyone. Important to investors. That includes the 15% rate for capital gains and dividends. That's been a big question mark. There's a 13-month extension of emergency unemployment benefits. Again, a key to the president. That will help some 2 million Americans whose unemployment insurance is set to expire at the end of the year. There's a payroll tax in here for everyone, for workers of 2%. For someone earning $40,000 a year, that's $800 in their pocket. It applies to 2011 alone. There's also a patch here for the AMT, the alternative minimum tax. This is going to spare millions of middle-income Americans from having to pay the AMT this year as well as next year. Again, this is a tax that was originally meant for high-end earners, but it was never indexed to inflation. The estate tax is back, but only at a 35% rate, and only for estates worth $5 million or more. Congressional Democrats hate this provision. Republicans love it. They fought for it in the talks. Tax breaks included in the Recovery Act would be extended for 2 more years. These are important to the president as well. They include the Earned Income Tax Credit, an expanded Earned Income Tax Credit, expanded Child Tax Credit, tuition tax credit, all popular with Democrats. There's 100% business expensing. Businesses be able to deduct 100% of the cost of certain equipment purchases in 2011. And there's a range of other popular tax breaks like the R&D tax credit that will be extended as well. Very important to business. All in all, it's a huge package with something in it that almost everyone on the Hill won't like, and it will not come cheap. The White House has not put a price tag on this. Neither has the Congress, but others have to some extent. And if you look at it right now, you compare it to the stimulus, for example, that cost $814 billion over 2 years. And according to some estimates, the cost of extending the Bush tax cuts for everyone for 2 years is $561 billion alone if you include interest. But then you add these other provisions on and you get another cost there, add another $326 billion. If you look at the standalone cost of some of these measures, that brings you to a price of $887 billion. Again, back of the envelope calculations there, but that's bigger than the stimulus. And of course, that goes right to the deficit. Deirdre, that's going to cause heartburn for deficit hawks in both parties. But it's liberal Democrats who are going to be most upset with this package. And now the president has to try and convince them to jump on board.
Peter, thanks so much for that complete breakdown. Peter Cook joining us there from D.C. Well, with a little bit more on what the White House is saying, we take you right now to Juliana Goldman. Juliana.
Well, Deirdre, the White House is saying that they really had no choice. It was either let tax cuts expire for everyone in this economy or find a deal that allowed them to get some of their key jobs measures through. At about 6:30 last night, President Obama stood before the cameras and he announced the framework of this potential deal.
And what is abundantly clear to everyone in this town is that Republicans will block a permanent tax cut for the middle class unless they also get a permanent tax cut for the wealthiest Americans, regardless of the cost or impact on the deficit.
Now, this is an admission of defeat. Yes, letting the tax cuts for the wealthy expire was a central promise of the president's 2008 campaign. But Obama said that at least they ended up being able to prevent middle-class and working-class families from falling as, quote, collateral damage in political warfare. Now, the president's aides say that the Republicans' carelessness about the deficit is going to be the beginning of a discussion that is going to end up taking us through the next election, Deirdre. Now, Obama also said that there were elements of this plan that he flat out does not like, namely, as Peter was just talking about, the 2-year extension of tax cuts for the wealthy and the estate tax. He said that neither sits well with him and neither sits well with progressives in his party either. But he may be on the verge of getting through 2 very business-friendly proposals that he can put a stamp on as his own. We're talking about the payroll tax holiday and the 100% capital expense depreciation. Officials say they are going to get the best bang for their buck from these proposals, even though, as Peter was just saying, they are not paid for. And so in many ways, his remarks were also directed at Democrats, warning members of his own party that they cannot be held hostage by ideology when unemployment is at 9.8%. The president said the recovery depended on getting middle-class families their tax cuts.
It's not perfect, but this compromise is an essential step on the road to recovery. It will stop middle-class taxes from going up. It'll spur our private sector, to create millions of new jobs, and add momentum that our economy badly needs.
And so, as Peter was just saying, the challenge now for the president is making sure that there's not a revolt from his Democratic base, which has been silent in response to the likely deal announced last night. Vice President Biden, he's going to be heading up to the Hill later this afternoon for the Senate caucus lunches to try and ease some of those concerns.